Let me ask you a question. When someone asks you, whether in a dating scenario or otherwise, what do you do? How do you answer that question? Are you one of these people who typically kind of goes, oh, I work in IT? Or are you someone who's able to speak enthusiastically about what you do and create a bit of zest in that kind of conversation, a little bit of pizzazz, a little bit of energy? Because I find in the dating world that that's a very common question to get asked, although I say to people, try and avoid those types of questions. However, it's good to be prepared for those common questions and know how you're going to answer these things, because it is the ultimate exercise of personal marketing, which is very similar to what you would do with anything else, a business. You're marketing your business, you're selling your product, etc. And this is one of the things we're going to talk about today with my incredible guest. So welcome everyone to the Feeling Inspired podcast. I welcome Neil, who's an Amazon expert, but he also said to me as well in a conversation, because we don't know each other, the first time we're meeting, he also said to me as well that you wanted to you were looking to become a dating coach at some point. But I think there's a lot of synergy between what we do. So first things first, I'd love to know a little bit more about you, what you've done up until this point. Tell me a bit about your history, because again, to me, it's very fascinating what you do, the Amazon selling, and you've sold a business. And please just tell me your life story. Go for it.
Thanks so much for having me today, Amit, by the way. And thanks for the kind intro. So yeah, I mean, my background starts from, back in school days. I started experiencing mental health issues from my late teens, and didn't really know what I wanted to do in uni. Ended up sort of choosing a course at random. And then within the first term, I was just like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
I can't be here any longer. So I dropped out after the first term. And I ended up with a really nice combination of a debt but no degree from uni, which was absolutely brilliant. So after that, I tried a few other different things. I tried personal training. I tried working in a few jobs, but none of those things worked out. For the same reason, I guess, university didn't, right? The whole institutionalized way of learning and working just didn't suit me. It drove me absolutely crazy. And so from there onwards, I ended up sort of floating towards a minimum wage job. So I was working in a warehouse for minimum wage, long hours. It was a horrible place. And from that point, I became extremely depressed, and I actually tried to take my own life in 2015. And
sounds a lot like my story as well.
Yeah.
It was the same for me as well.
A lot of people go down that way. I suppose once you're in that downward spiral, it just keeps going and going, and gravity takes effect. And exactly as you're saying, right? It's very easy for gravity to take effect like that. And at that point, I thought, you know what? I've messed up absolutely everything I've ever touched. So why not just put an end to it here? Instead of just letting things get worse and worse and worse over the next however many years I've got to live, why don't we just end it here? And after that event, when I actually ended up surviving, I realized that surely it's from a series of my own decisions and choices, left or right, A or B, that led me in that downward spiral. So surely a series of choices, left or right, A or B, can now take me to a place that I actually want to be. So that's what I decided to do. And at that time, I was on a lookout for any kind of business or system that would allow me to escape that job that I hated so passionately. And I came across an article about how you can buy stuff from China and sell it on Amazon and eBay. It was a very, very simplistic way, but that sort of sparked my interest, and I slowly got deeper and deeper and deeper down that rabbit hole. And within about 6 months of starting my first business on Amazon, I was able to leave my job and focus on that full time. And from there to 2022, I managed to scale the business to 7 figures and sold it just over about 2 years ago now.
Wow, that's incredible.
And yeah, thanks so much, man. I mean, to be honest, people say stuff like, oh, that's incredible, that's an incredible journey. But weirdly enough, it felt like I had no choice. It was kind of like this or nothing else, this or work in a job that you hate and hate your life every single day, all day. So it's kind of like, for me, it was a survival mechanism. And I think for a lot of people out there as well, you would be very, very surprised what you can actually achieve when your back is against the wall, right? Yeah. When you have no other choice but to make this work, you'll be shocked at how you can make it work.
Yeah.
So, weirdly enough, I feel like the terrible stuff was actually a blessing, because it pushed me towards the things that were actually going to make a difference in life. And yeah, weirdly enough, I do feel like, as bad as it sounds, I feel like I wish more people had their back against a wall as an alternative to doing something that they actually want to do, right? So it kind of forces you towards the thing that you want to do, and you realize that you can get a lot more out of that when you have no other choice. So definitely, I think having a hard situation to move away from or having some pain to run away from makes a big, big difference.
Do you know, we could do an entire podcast just on your intro, right? But we will try and cram in as much in as we possibly can.
Of course.
Several things to unpick from that. One thing that I loved, we were talking about kind of the choice, the A and B. And that's one thing I say to people right now is that one of the biggest principles I teach is what I call the binary principle. If you can narrow your problem down to a very simple binary choice, it tends to make life a lot easier. And that involves evaluating both sides or all sides of the problem, coming down to your two essential choices and knowing what the outcome of each of those choices are, and then being able to make that choice. So dating scenario, maybe it's you're with someone and you're not sure if it's a healthy relationship, and you ultimately know there is one or two choices here. You either perhaps continue and try and solve the problem, or you choose to walk away and go down a separate path. So I love that. I love the fact you mentioned that. And the one of the things that I started out doing was teaching this whole idea of the power of choice. And you talked about it as well, right? You get to a point where you realize that you don't have to do what you think you have to do. You can go actually decide and choose to do something different, and not what the status quo is, and not what the institutionalized version of these things are. And The Rock also talks about this. You might have seen him in one of his videos. He was giving a talk to, I think it was either a basketball team or an NFL team. And he was talking about how he actually likes having his back up against the wall.
Definitely.
Because then it forces him to fight back. And so I kind of like that scenario as well. And then you talked about your business, and we could go down that route as well. But I want to talk more about kind of like maybe the marketing side, the mindset side, and how you took something from scratch, from its inception, and turned it into something big. So we'll go down that path. And I just want to ask you in terms of, because I think you present yourself so well on your social media. Like you not only are a pro, but you look like a pro as well. I mean, there are some people who look like a pro, but they look like amateurs because they just don't have the marketing right. But you have that synergy. And so what's some of the things that led you to be able to create this business and do something good, and then obviously sell it as well? What was some of the fundamental secrets to getting that done?
So the biggest thing I have to say is discipline and obsession. A lot of people think it comes down to desire. I mean, desire is the first thing that leads you down that path to, start committing to a certain decision. But the thing about desire and motivation is it can be quite temporary, right? Today you feel really driven, like I can do this. And then tomorrow you're just like, oh, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
Or, that can always wane. It can always change every day. But discipline will always trump everything else, because discipline doesn't change. It doesn't care how you feel. You do the same thing every single day, moving towards your goal. So definitely discipline. The way I find in terms of, achieving my goals in life is actually super, super simple, in that every single day you brush your teeth, right? Now, let's say, I don't know, you woke up in the morning to your baby crying, you had to change a nappy and do this, that, or the other, and you didn't get to brushing your teeth first thing in the morning. But you know that today, whether it's now or in a bit or whatever, you need to brush your teeth, take a shower, all those things. Now, if you look at every step or every action of your goal in the exact same way, you've got to do this thing every single day, by hook or by crook. This isn't a choice. This is just something you have to do, just because you have to do it.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot easier. I mean, for me, an easy example for me is also the gym. So up until a couple of years ago, I was avoiding the gym for a long time. And I'd say about 2 years ago, I decided to start treating it in the exact same way as you would, brushing your teeth or taking a shower. That means 3 times every single week, you've got to get to the gym. Whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what time, what day, none of that matters. You need to make sure you go to the gym 3 times. That's it. The end of story. And as soon as you start looking at all of those things that you need to do in your life in that same way, it makes it much simpler. So, I need to make sure that I'm looking for a new product. I need to make sure I'm ordering more stock. I need to make sure that I'm optimizing ads, whatever that might be. You have to do those things. It's not a case of I'll do it if I get round to it. There are certain things that you can do if you get round to it, certain things that you just have to do. So, it really comes down to prioritizing what has to be done and what can be left till tomorrow.
Nice. I like that. I love that. Especially the analogy about, brushing your teeth and the essentials and the things we have to do. And the motivation is temperamental. That's such a huge thing I try to explain to people. Like, to be honest, I'm absolutely exhausted from training for my 4th marathon, and I'm so tired, right? But I know I've still got to train today.
Exactly. That's what you've got to do.
I've just have to go do it. So later on, I'll be going either doing my run on the treadmill or I'll be doing it outside and my skipping and all that kind of stuff. But I know I've just got to do it. And actually, the greatest lessons and the greatest compounding effect of that exercise comes from the moments when I'm most tired. Because I not only did I train yesterday, but I played badminton competitively in the evening as well. So I'm literally like shattered. I can barely move right now.
Yeah.
But I've still got to train. But that's it, is exactly that. So when I thrust myself into that situation of going to the gym now, that's when that compound effect will take effect. And, you know, my body's thinking, oh, you're tired, rest, relax, right? You know, you don't need to do anything right now. You know, my mind's trying to talk me out of it. No, be all right. You trained twice yesterday. You know, you got that little self-talk, that little devil on your shoulder, saying all of these things, trying to talk you out of it, but you realize, no, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go, got to do it, got to train. If I don't, I'm going to be hellishly knackered on the day and maybe not even finish the marathon. But if I'm going to finish, I'm going to do it, then I've just got to keep going. And that is the next phase of that, knowing what the end goal is, having a very clear vision. Again, this aligns with dating so much that I talk to people about, is that people who I speak to or I know who've been single for a long time, they usually just don't have an end goal. Yeah. They don't know what that end goal is at all.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All they know, and they can articulate it in such a way, is to say, I just want to meet someone. Okay, tell me what that looks like. Someone who's kind. And it's very fluffy, but there's no actual real idea of what it looks like, what the vision is, what they want, what they want to accomplish. But it seems like you kind of had an idea, you kind of came across this Amazon selling, and you sort of, did you know what the end goal would be, what you wanted to achieve? And, you know, or even as you went along, you created that end goal might have adapted, but you kind of, you know, grew it into something and you knew what it wanted to become.
Actually, to be honest, no, because like any business or any goal that you've had in life, right? Let's take Amazon, the business, as an example, right? Amazon started out as a bookstore, and now it's an everything store. So what you always start out with any intention for with a business is never what it ends up being. That's one thing I've always learned.
But you had the attention, though, didn't you?
Yeah,
they had some idea, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't evolve, right? But it's still a very clear idea of what it can become. And it doesn't mean, because obviously you do something and you think to yourself, oh, actually, this might be a good add-on, or it might be a good idea to do this. So you kind of, it does evolve, and you've got to be open into it evolving, and it not knowing it needs to be rock solid, just one thing. But you still start off with one end goal in mind, but you realize there's probably a million ways of getting there, and also there's a million different ways to finish.
Yeah, definitely. Have an end goal in mind, but be flexible on how you're going to get there. Because exactly as we say, nothing is ever mapped out in the way that you expect it to be. There's always going to be unexpected things. And essentially as well, especially within a business, you're responding to the market as well, rather than just your own vision. Your own vision may not align with the market, so that it may need to be adapted and changed to the market. And I guess very, very similar to dating, right? You may think that, you know, women like a man with long hair and who's tall and who's muscular and whatever.
You talking about yourself there?
Unfortunately not. I mean, the hair's getting there, but, you know, who knows?
Hey, dude, look at your hair compared to mine, right? I never had that long, thick Indian hair. I've always had slightly thinner hair and stuff, and obviously it's almost all gone now. But yeah, no, you got the muscles, you got the.
Maybe I've got muscles. That's about it. I mean, the hairline, unfortunately, over the last 2 years, I've been noticing it moving back slowly. I looked at a picture from 2 years ago. I'm like, I still had more hair than now.
Oh, man, honestly.
So, you know, I'm
enjoy
making the most.
what,
exactly.
Enjoy
I'm making the most. That's why I'm growing it. But honestly, you may believe that's what a woman wants, right? However, through your own self-development and self-discovery of being the best version of yourself, you might find that the best version of yourself doesn't look like that. And that best version of yourself attracts the partner that you always wanted. So it's not always the thing that you think, but always maybe, I think, being the best version of yourself. In the same way, you can make the best business that you can in terms of, you know, you follow what the market is leading to you towards, in the same way that, you know, being the best version of yourself doesn't necessarily look like the things you've seen on TV or social media. You know, you're not going to look like those guys who play superheroes in Marvel movies, but you will still attract the person of your dreams by being the most authentic version of yourself. So definitely in all of it, it comes down to authenticity.
Yeah.
To being confident in your authenticity as well.
So some of the specifics then, let's talk about specifics first in terms of what you did and what did you do on Amazon to get to the point where you sold your business? Like what products did you find? What did you sell? And so did you do it with an exit strategy in mind? Did you kind of, was that also part of the eventual end goal? Did you, was there a specific subset of products, or was it anything, or did you just find anything that worked and sold? And like, tell me, I genuinely want to know like the full gambit of everything that you did.
So interestingly, in the beginning, I was not doing very well at all, right? I tried the kinds of things that would be obvious. I thought, just like most new sellers or new business people, I thought, you know what, I'm going to sell what everyone else is buying. So I thought, loads of people have iPhones, so I'm going to sell iPhone charging cables. Genius, so I thought, right? How are you ever going to run enough demand for iPhone charging cables? And that didn't work out. And there were a lot of other similar products, you know, smartphone accessories, computer accessories, things like that I tried that were boring and simple and just didn't work out and didn't make much money. And then I tried something like a flashlight. It was a really simple type of flashlight, and it seemed to work really well. Well, I say it seemed to work really well comparatively to everything else. Now I thought, okay, so why don't we try more stuff like this? Because that worked and those didn't. So from that flashlight, I tried other types of lighting products. And from other types of lighting products, what I found worked very, very, very well was motion sensor security lights that were powered by alternative sources. So battery or solar or whatnot. Yeah. And so I decided, okay, so why don't we forget about all the rest of this stuff and just focus on lights? And then what we found was actually most of the lights are irrelevant. Only the ones that are powered by alternative sources and easy to fit are popular. So essentially all I did was try loads of stuff, see what works and what doesn't, take what doesn't, throw it all in the bin, and just double down on what works and keep reinventing and reiterating and making variations on what does work. And that's essentially what I did. And that sort of led me towards selling the business simply because over a few years, that business started growing and growing and growing. And I had originally started this out in the garage at my dad's house at home where I was living. And slowly, it kept growing to a point where it was just too much for one person to manage, right? Because I was running it at home, I wasn't really comfortable with getting an employee in to help me with managing the stock. So I was kind of managing everything myself. And I got to a point where I was like, this is just too much for one person to handle. And, you know, similar to like how a kid goes to school, right? At high school, once you get to the last year of high school, there's only so much learning you can do before you have to graduate to a new school, before you have to graduate to university or college or what have you. So this was the business's way of graduating to university or college. I could only take it up to the end of high school. Now to get it beyond that, I'd have to sell it. And, you know, to keep continuing this on my own felt like it was something that was going to be overwhelming. So it made a lot more sense for me to actually take that business and sell it on and use the funds from the sale of that business to create a buy-to-let rental property portfolio while I build and grow other e-commerce businesses in the exact same way. So that's what I decided to do in the end. So over COVID, weirdly enough, I felt like there were a few universal signals as well. One thing I do find about life is the universe will give you signals. So I remember that there was a broker who actually emailed me to say, we've seen this brand online and we think that you could get a really good price selling this if you are interested in it. And at first I sort of ignored that message. And then as time went on, that sort of kept worming its way into the middle of my mind. And one or two things went a little wrong. And I thought, I have no idea how to fix those or why they even went wrong. Maybe actually I'm running out of talent here and I can't do this on my own. And that's why I sort of started thinking more towards actually selling this could be the right direction.
Yeah.
Because now you're going to have more people who are able to run this business who can help you sell it, but then you can move on to something else where, you know, you can start developing it and outsourcing in the exact same way. So it made a lot more sense, as I say, to sell that business on.
A healthy breakup.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Especially in the sense that the other thing about a new business as well is that, especially if you have, you know, no other businesses or no other skills or employment potential, for me, 100% of my risk was associated with this one business, which meant there was a single point of failure. If something snaps between me and that business, then I'm screwed completely. So the idea was also to diversify a little bit more. So for me now, if any one of my businesses goes down or something that you never expected happens, that will never be a problem because there are other businesses too. So that was the idea of diversifying, having more legs to stand on instead of just one.
Nice. So much to unpack. I'm not even sure where to begin. Like, I think there's so many elements to this, your whole story, that I find fascinating. That because my taste and my knowledge and my thirst for knowledge in life is so eclectic. So I love, like I said, the marketing side, the business side, the promotional side, the everything, literally the full spectrum and stuff. And I genuinely, there's so much I want to know. Like, so when you were doing this business and stuff, were you with your partner at the time, by the way?
I was with my partner.
And was that also, when you said you went through that period where you were suicidal as well, were you also still with your partner at the time?
I was, but we sort of broke up in the middle.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
that was not really her fault. It was actually completely mine.
Yeah.
I was in an action where I was trying to drive everyone away and cut off all my ties, to make the process of ending my own life easier. So yeah, I sort of drove her away at the time. And when I was putting my life back together, that was the first thing I sort of reattached myself to. And yeah, that was probably one of the biggest motivating factors in terms of keeping my business going and stabilizing myself and creating a good foundation, was so that I could have a good foundation for that relationship to keep growing, towards marriage and having our own children and whatnot. You sort of need to be financially stable to do that. And that was my main motivation to begin with.
Yeah, and it's a big motivation for a man, I think, as well. Yeah. So again, this is a whole different angle to take as well, and that drive to want to provide and support your family and be there for your family.
Definitely.
And when you were going through this anyway and building and going through all those failures and stuff, did you find it put a bit of a strain in your relationship? Were you able to manage those emotions, the roller coaster of going through all these failures, and even with your immediate family, not just your spouse, but your immediate family? How did you find coping with all of that kind of stuff?
It was very, very difficult. I'm not going to lie. It's still the most difficult thing I've ever done, was growing that business to the point where I could sell it, and all of the personal impact that it had. I was working a lot, and even when I wasn't working, my mind was preoccupied with the anxiety of, will the business be doing what I expect it to do? So that really did make things difficult in my personal life. And I will fully admit, I worked on the morning of my wedding day. So before, the car arrived for me to get in and all my family to go with me to the wedding,
Crazy.
I actually quickly jumped in the office and I was working on that day. I worked through my honeymoon as well. Two things that I regret, but also I don't regret. It's one of those things that, would I be here if I wasn't as disciplined as doing that? Would I have done as well? Possibly, but possibly not. I can't know. Do I feel like I wasn't as present as I could have been in certain times that I can't get back? Probably so. So, I feel like I'm not sure whether I regret it or not. All I know is I don't regret any of the bad things that have happened, because, as I say, weirdly enough, bad things weirdly actually direct you towards the good things. Because it says, so this one's a no-go, this one's a no-go, this one's a no-go, this one's a no-go, but this one is. So all of those 4 bad things that happened before the good thing kind of led you towards the good thing. So I have no regrets about the bad things.
It's almost like a sliding doors thing. Philosophy, isn't it? Yeah. Even though there are times when I think back to my life and I think about some of the things that have happened to me, the tragedies, the hardships. But ultimately, I know that I would not be the human being that I am today were it not for those things occurring in my life. And so there was only probably one major regret I have in my life, major, which was getting into debt. But again, I think I wouldn't be as money conscious as I am now. And I'm not super tight-fisted or anything. There's people way more tight-fisted than I am. But there were things, it just made me more conscious about, what type of debt I would get into, and, not just, spending beyond my means or things like that, as well, actually building a pot of wealth and things like that. So I think it taught me good values, but it was definitely one of the reasons I was suicidal and tried to take my life was because I was back then, in the early 2000s, I was at max consumer debt, which is about 35 grand. And it was a horrible place to be in. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but it was an awful place. So I still have regretful thoughts about how I got to that stage, because my dad and my parents did try and instill good values in me, good monetary values in me, because we were quite a poor family, but I just didn't listen, didn't take it on board, and had to discover it the hard way. I had to discover it the really hard way. A question for you about your brand. After you sold your business, by the way, did the company that bought your business, did they maintain the same brand? What was the brand and what did they?
The brand
maintain?
is called Proxinova, and it was selling mostly motion sensor security lights. Yeah. More specifically, motion sensor security lights that looked a little bit like CCTV cameras. That was kind of a niche that I accidentally invented on Amazon.
Yeah.
Now you'll see that everywhere online, but I accidentally invented it because I noticed this trend when I was launching these security lights, that the ones that look a bit like CCTV cameras or that look like they're looking at what you're doing seem to be working better. So I sort of doubled down on that idea. So I just kept going more and more narrow on those ideas. And the new brand owner has maintained it relatively well. Not perfectly, because they're probably not as obsessed as I was, because, they're a company that operates lots and lots of brands just like Proxinova. Whereas Proxinova was like my own thing, my own sort of brainchild. So I was very, very obsessed at keeping it absolutely perfect. But weirdly enough, observing it since the sale has taught me a lot, in the sense that your obsession with perfection is kind of more of a self-inflicted thing for most people, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of the time there'll be things about us in our own lives. Every single person will be obsessed about a certain thing, where you realize that you don't actually need to be as obsessed as you are. It can still work even if you do 80% of the work. It taught me actually not to be so obsessed, and that, there are diminishing returns after a certain point of effort. So it's something that taught me to actually not necessarily get so obsessed with a particular thing or particular business, that actually, as long as you are guiding something in the right direction and watching out for, the room for error that you need to be watching out for, then you should be okay.
Yeah. Nice. So switching themes slightly as well, in that when you of everything you've been through and that's happened to you, and the challenge and the struggle of doing this, it sounds like your partner was there. And when did you guys get married?
So we got married, time flies, doesn't it?
It does.
We got married about 4 years ago now.
Fantastic as well. So was that still in the early part of the business?
That was actually near the end. So that was actually just 1 year before I sold the business.
Nice. Okay, cool. Gotcha. But during that time, obviously, you were still together, going through your struggles. And, how did that affect your relationship and stuff? And what would you say about how your partner supported you as well?
So, to be honest, I think she put up with a lot.
Yeah.
Put up with a lot.
She's married to you now, which is obviously, you still did something right?
Exactly. And I think even now she puts up with a lot. It's a 3-person relationship. It's me, her, and our business. So it's always something that she's had to put up with. And it's something that I appreciate, because it's not easy. It's not easy. As I say, where you think there's 2 of you, there's actually almost like 3 of you. And that third person is influencing almost everything else that happens too. So yeah, she did put up with a lot. I think in the beginning it was also difficult for her to understand, because she comes from a very corporate background. Both of her parents have worked in the corporate world, and they've done well in the corporate world. So to her, the example of how to do well from your work is to follow that corporate ladder. So when I was sort of, selling things on Amazon, it was like, I don't know, this doesn't seem like something that you can build a living out of. It's not something that is going to, create a life for you. It seems like something that's cool to do in your spare time, but is it something that's going to, change your whole life and something that you can create a whole living out of? Probably not.
Yeah.
And then after a few years, it did sort of get that way, where it was something that I could create a living out of. So she also was flexible in her view as well. She also could see that this has changed, and actually maybe I was wrong before. So she has learned a lot as well about what has happened and what she's observed. She's learned a lot through that too. And that's even helped her in her own work as well, in terms of where she's gone in her career path. She's worked with, startup businesses too. And a lot of the time she's been successful in her roles within those startup businesses because she understands what it's like to work in a new business, because she's observed that in me. So I think she's learned a lot from that too. And she's learned a lot of discipline and patience from it, as much as I have, if I'm honest. She got a big personal lesson and development out of it, just as much as I did, which is weird. A lot of people don't realize that the partner of a business owner also learns a ton of stuff, not just the business owner themselves.
Yeah, my wife works in corporate, and I'm privy to a phone conversation. We both got our office at home, so often I hear her on the phone. She's quite loud. Love you, honey. Love you, honey. No, but it's funny actually, because I was a project manager as well before, and she's a program manager, and she does all of this kind of stuff. So I hear her talking, and I hear all of the stuff that I previously knew about working in the IT world, being a project manager. And but it's quite interesting, because there's a tiny small part of my brain that listens to her conversations, thinking that should I ever need to return to the world of work, at least I'm still au fait with what the project management world is about, and I can kind of maybe blag my way a little bit just based on her conversations. So that little tiny, there's that, that idea.
So do you ever think about the corporate world, like if you could ever go back? Personally, I don't even know where my CV is, or if I have a copy of it.
I do actually. Yeah, I think it's very deeply ingrained in me. And so I still have my CV, and I still actually, believe it or not, update it occasionally. And the reason I do that is because there is, I will always say this, and I'm never ever going to lie about this. Running a business is freaking hard. And there are times where it is exceptionally trying. And there are parts of me that do occasionally think, oh, it'd be so nice to just go back and work for someone else to make all the decisions, and I don't have to worry about it. So for that reason, I do keep my CV there. Whether people think that's a good thing, bad thing, cop out, whatever, I don't care. I keep it there. I do update it occasionally with my current job title, managing director of my business, plus holistic love coach, plus content creator. That's the three things, obviously, that I put on there that I talk about. So yeah, I do kind of have it there.
No, but that's cool though, because options are there for when choices run out.
Yeah. And occasionally I'll come across a very unique job on LinkedIn, and just literally, I don't go looking for it, but if I see something and I think, oh, that's really interesting, that's something I potentially love to do. There was one in particular just like that recently. I'm not going to mention it, but it just popped up on my screen, and I thought, sometimes these things aren't by accident. So I just thought, I'm going to apply for this role.
Fair enough.
I haven't heard anything yet. I have no idea. I don't know. It's going to be one of those roles that a lot of people are going to apply to. So yeah, honestly, I do. Would I ever go back? I don't know. But it's just that thought is sometimes there, and I think because it's deeply ingrained because of that period of being in huge debt. And we do live in a world of very uncertainty. My wife and I were comfortable. We're happy with, we're in a good place. But, should tomorrow, she's the more steady source of income in our household. So should tomorrow she decide to retire, then I would actually 100% consider going back and doing something. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't continue with a side hustle or two. Like, for example, obviously my cards, which I forgot to do earlier, by the way, which is fine. We'll talk through this later. Selling something like this that I invented, or doing a little bit of coaching on the side as well. So those would continue as well. And I wouldn't completely 100% give it up, because I just love it too much. So
fair enough. So I actually have a question for you though as well.
Oh, nice.
Is circling back to, you said you were at a point where you were suicidal because you were in £35,000 worth of debt, right? Now looking back, would you say £35,000 worth of debt is enough to consider taking your own life for?
Oh, hell no. By today's standards, exactly. That debt is nothing. But then, if I think back to then, it was I think it was quite rare to have that much personal debt back in the early 2000s we're talking about. And at that age as well, so I'm in my mid-20s, even students then, for them, I think that was round about the time, maybe, or a little bit later on, when students started paying you for university, that 3,000 yearly fee.
Yeah, because I remember at that sort of time, you could get a decent property for like 70, 80K. So this is roughly half of that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Essentially, this debt was half a house.
Yeah, in fact, I just bought a property for about just under in fact, it was £93,000. That was in Wembley. So obviously the hindsight element, looking back, of course not. But at the time, the gravitas of that £35,000 debt was so immense. And I was earning a lot less at the time. I was, what was I on at that point in time? Maybe about approximately £21,000, let's say, for argument's sake. So that almost double my yearly income was my debt. So when you proportionalize it like that, you realize that obviously it's, so if you're earning 50 grand right now and you had 100 grand of debt, that's probably almost the equivalent to think about it. So that's how I think about it. But it was a strain, because do you know why it was so difficult for me? Was I think my options felt limited. You feel trapped. You can't leave that job for whatever reason. So if you're in a crappy job that you don't like, you have to stay there because you need that money.
Been there.
You we see all your friends talking about going on holidays and doing all the things they love. But let's face it, the debt was completely 100% all my fault. No one else to blame for that at all. No one, not a single person I could blame. It was all me, but it was still a struggle. You know, people are living their lives, doing their thing, and I just couldn't do anything. I didn't have my first trip away with the boys, like proper trip, as in like we went to the West Coast until 2009. You know, I'd done European trips, but that was my first time to America, I think, 2009. Because I'd reduced the debt and I had a little bit of disposable income, so we went. And then gradually, after I finally went into contracting after 2016, you know, obviously contracting, you can earn a huge amount of money in a very short space of time. So I managed to just clear all my debt within a very short space of time. Took my wife on a beautiful honeymoon, and all of these things that I could never have done prior to that. And it was a beautiful feeling. It's a good feeling. And, you know, like I still remember it really well, that weight being lifted. And it's one of these things that if I speak to young people now, I talk about it with them so seriously, the monetary aspect, because I think to myself, and I'm sure this is a new lesson, you know, your kid is very young, I know, but it's probably a lesson you will impart well on them, and very emphatically, that, you know, the monetary aspect is so important and how you manage your money. And, you know, when I talk to my nephews and nieces and things like that, you know, about how you manage your finances and all the tools we have now to grow wealth. Yes, things are more difficult, but we've got so many more options. You've got options like, you know, I don't know about you, but I've got about like 6 trading apps on my phone that I use, which we never had, you know, 15, 20 years ago. So long as you're sensible and you don't gamble, you don't do it in a sense of gambling, but you just do it from a place of investing and growing your pot, then you know what? You've got options that myself never had 20 years ago. And 100%. So, you know, so yes, things are tough, but you also have equally more options to be able to do things. So,
I mean, with that, one thing I've always lived by is realizing money actually isn't even real.
Yes.
It is only real when it's transacted.
Yes.
That's one thing I've learned is money itself is not real unless it's transacted. That's the only time it becomes real. But otherwise, what actually is money? Yeah. Money is actually, it's like an intangible number. Sorry, it's a tangible number that is assigned to everything that is intangible about what humans know. Right? So, you know, why is it that we need food and shelter and all of those things? How do we get those things? By doing something to earn some money, then buying those things that we need. It's like this weird intangible loop that happens in the middle. But yeah, I've always thought that money is actually just this tangible value that's assigned to all of the intangible value that we don't understand more about.
Yeah.
If you don't understand it, just give it a monetary value.
Yeah.
You know, this life-saving drug is going to cost £100.
Yeah.
Right? Your life is an intangible thing, but the value you've given to that drug is £100. Great. That's the value you've given to it. So money is a very weird thing like that. It's something that's very, very difficult to understand in the modern world because it's a very weird thing.
It is. I agree with you. Were you ever a Trekkie by any chance? Like, did you watch Star Trek?
I was not a Trekkie actually myself.
I love, there's something in Star Trek, and more recently there was a newer TV series that originally was designed as a bit of a spoof of Star Trek. It's called The Orville, right? It's the guy who created Family Guy and things like that, and American Dad. Same guy, Seth MacFarlane, right? So he created this series called The Orville, and he's the star of it as well. And so originally it was created as a bit of a piss take of Star Trek. But you could tell, as I watched this series, it evolved into its own little thing rather than it just being a piss take. And it was really nice. I really enjoyed it. But in both those series, they both had a concept. And that was in the future, in the year, say, 2400, whenever they were set, money doesn't exist. Because all of our needs are provided very easily. They have a device called a replicator or synthesizer or something. And that can make your food, whatever you need, it can make anything. It's almost like a super advanced 3D printer. So it makes food, it makes items, it makes anything, whatever you want. And so money doesn't exist. And the real currency in that is living your purpose, living your passion, what you enjoy doing, what you could do forever and ever without even giving it a second thought. You could work 24 hours on something and your mind wouldn't even bat an eyelid because you just love that work so much. That's the currency of the future. And I love that idea, that concept. And I agree with you 100%. Money is such a weird thing. When you look at the origins of money, again, I don't know if you've ever seen the Zeitgeist documentaries or...
I have actually, yeah.
Yeah. And you look at the origins of money and where it's come from and what it has become, what it was originally, a source of barter or something, an exchange of goods, to now what it is. You realize, and money doesn't even have any attachment to anything real anymore. It's not against the gold standard anymore or anything like that. You realize that actually it's just this real ethereal thing that doesn't mean a lot, but unfortunately our world still revolves around it. So we've still got to work with that system. So I assume for you, that mindset you still would like to impart, not just on your kid, but maybe even your friends' kids, being able to share that wisdom with them so that they make better choices perhaps in the future. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as I say, making choices based solely on money seems very short-lived.
Yeah.
Simply because, as I say, money isn't real. With that, I mean, you can always create more money if you need it. Once you know how to create more capital, it's very easy to create more capital. Whereas time you can never create more of. So I've realized that time and happiness are the ultimate currencies.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do everything for. It's to buy us time and to buy us happiness. Other than that, what would be the point of money? Of course, to provide for your family, but providing for your family is, you do that in order to buy them time and happiness, right? So it all comes down to those two things. Those are the ultimate currencies, is time and happiness, exactly as you're saying.
I agree, but also as well, I think, just again, back to the nature of this world, I think when you've been in that situation that you almost become not just obsessed with money for the sake of money, but obsessed with money because you're in debt, you're struggling. And so you're always thinking about, how am I going to pay for things? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? The amount of then time that gets spent. So obviously, if you look at it on a graph, then the less money you have, the more time you're thinking about money, and your energy is getting expended in that avenue. And so I think that that's where, even though money itself, really, to be honest, is a bit of a bull concept, it's still important, because if you don't have, it's like that, those studies they've done, you get to a certain point of income and then your happiness level tends to remain pretty consistent. Yeah. So you need that, at least that much. And, even Daniel Pink, when he talks about, the science of motivation, he talks about, people get to a point where, there are three things far more important than money, which is autonomy, mastery, and purpose, right? So you need those three things, no matter how much money you're earning. And who was it? I can't remember if it was Richard Branson who said this. It might have been, and he talks about, or it might have been someone else, but it was just that concept that if you're going to pay your employees, pay them enough to take money off the table, so that they're not thinking about it, so that they can live comfortably, they can live their life, and their mindset, their head, their thoughts, their energy is focused on the task at hand, not how do I pay my next bill, how do I do this, etc., etc.
100%.
So I think, from that perspective, giving them that freedom through having money and options and choices enough, not so that they, to the point they get greedy, but enough that then they're able to make choices, more fun choices. Like, I could live somewhere else in the world, work remotely, have a business remotely where I do Amazon stuff, or do something else online, or a remote coaching business, anything of the like. You said, how old is your kid now?
7 months.
I mean, obviously your kid's very young, right? I'm sure the world is going to be in a very different place 20 years from here. If we look at the last 20 years, it's going to be in a very different place. But at least you can still, impart something in there that's going to leave a lasting impression that will help them. And, you're building your family business, you're building your generational wealth now for your kid, for your future kid.
Amit, you would have played Crash Bandicoot on PlayStation back in the day, right?
Yeah. I was never a huge gamer, but I definitely played it, yeah.
So one thing I've realized is Crash Bandicoot is the perfect analogy of how life works, right? So life, all the challenges that you have to navigate every single day is like the map that you're going through, right? So the goal of life is to get through the map. The apples that you collect along the way are essentially the equivalent to money, right? So it's really useful to collect the money along the way, because, when you get 100 apples, you get another life. However, the whole point of the game, as I say, is to complete the map and go to the next level, and then complete that map and go to the next level, right? If you spent all your time when playing that game just trying to collect the apples, you'd never complete the level, right? So with that, as long as you actually progress through the level and complete each and every single map, you'll collect the apples. So the thing about getting good at life and living well is about learning to play the game well, not collecting apples. Because when you get obsessed with collecting apples, you'll get stuck on level 1 because you're just sitting on level 1 trying to collect all the apples in the map. When actually you should have completed level 1 and gone to level 2, level 3, level 4. Right? And if
where there's more apples.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And you'll notice as well, if you do the exact same thing all day, every day, you're going to get really, really bored. Like playing the exact same map on Crash Bandicoot, you'll get bored.
Yeah.
The whole point is to go to the next one and the next one and the next one. So that's what I've realized. Life is about actually doing the thing that creates value and actually progresses you, and you'll collect the apples along the way.
Yeah. I was smiling because I have a very similar gaming analogy of life and stuff about levels and things like that. But you're absolutely right. And you know, when I talk about money, for me, it's not the hoarding of money. Like if you walked in the room today and you said, Amit, you know what? I feel really generous. You invite me on your podcast. Here's $100,000 for you. And I'd be like, Neil, dude, thanks. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful gift. Thank you. You don't have to do that. I'd be like, no, Amit, I insist. Take this $100,000. I'd be like, okay, cool. I accept it graciously and say thank you. And then, you know, I mean, I'm 48 now, and I've had 2 friends pass away recently who one was 47, one was 45, right? So we need this kind of duality within ourselves where I'm living for the moment now, and I'm also thinking about the future as well. Because the truth is, I do have that level of, I don't have that level of hubris anymore where I think to myself, you know how some people speak in absolutes? Like a good example of this is, you know, people come to me, I say I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. That type of absolute. I don't live there anymore. I have no idea and no clue what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. Will I still be Amit Sodha, the love doctor, the love coach tomorrow? No clue. I genuinely have no idea. Because I know, 1, I may not be here. 2, I may just change my mind, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If I decide tomorrow I want to go do something else, I will just go and do something else with no regret, no explanation to anyone. It's just my choice. It's just what I want to do. It's what I'm feeling in the moment. So taking that analogy back to money as well, I think to myself, do you know what? Neil's been nice enough to give me $100,000. Now, I don't want to just hoard that $100,000 and just keep it aside for a rainy day, because there's an old quote that I love, which is never save anything for a special occasion, because being alive is a special occasion.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful quote, and that sits with me every day. And there's that other video that does the rounds, and I saw another version of it the other day where the guy is talking to this guy, and he says to him, if I give you, you know, £10 million, would you accept it? If I just gave you 10 million quid right now, you accept it?
In theory, in practice, probably not.
No, but let's just say, all other things being equal, I give you 10 million. I just said, Neil, I've got millions. Here you go, it's 10 million, right?
Let's say Elon Musk accidentally transferred it to your account.
Yeah.
He's not even going to bother to check. He's just going to send more.
I mean, but even me, I just give you 10 million quid. Neil, I've got millions. Don't worry about it. Just take it, right? Would you, you take it, right?
Sure, right.
But if I said to you, it came with the condition that you wouldn't wake up tomorrow, you would say,
absolutely not.
Exactly, right? So that whole point is that waking up to you is worth more than that £10 million. So wake up feeling good. So I love that analogy. But back to my original point, I think it's good to have money because it means I've got options. So I'm not going to just sit here and just hoard it. I will if I feel like spending on something, I will. That's valuable to me. Of course, what's valuable to me now is very different to what was valuable to me 15 years ago. So now I'm spending a lot of money this year taking my wife away for her 50th birthday. We're going to Thailand, Borneo, Bali, because we want to create memories. We want to create beautiful experiences for ourselves, have beautiful experiences. So that's an expensive trip, but forget it. I might not be here tomorrow. I may as well just live and enjoy, but also I will think about the future too. And it's a delicate balance to maintain. 100%. I still want to be here till I'm 80, 90 years old. And I still want to be in a position where I can still have options at 90 years old, as well as do things now and enjoy. And I think that's always a tricky balance to have, but it's an important one to consider. So yeah, I'm not living completely, I may die tomorrow, let me just blow 100 grand right now. I've got to find the balance between both of those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
that's the way I think of it. Anyway,
I think it's like everything in life, right? Living as if you're going to die tomorrow, but also living as if you're going to live forever.
Forever, yeah.
Which is, I mean, because they both tell you to do opposite things.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm living as if I'm making every single day count, does that mean I should eat a cake or go to the gym? Which should I do?
Yeah.
Because am I wanting to live longer? Am I wanting to make sure that I've got the best quality of life, or am I wanting to make sure that today's the best? It's very, very difficult to know. It's definitely a very difficult balance, because time is always limited, and you don't know how limited it is. Well, like you'll never know which is your last day. And one of the craziest things that hit me a few years ago as well is for almost every single person in the world, every single individual, even not even humans, your last normal day on Earth, you'll have no idea that's your last normal day, right? Let's say something happens to you on this normal day, and now you're in bed, in a hospital bed, and slowly you're on the decline, and eventually that's what is the sort of runway to the end of your life, right? We're all going to die one day. But you'll have no idea which is your last normal day on Earth, which is a very, very scary thought. It's a very scary thought. So how do you know whether to make today count or to invest in tomorrow? You never really know.
Yeah, of course. But, we're never going to be able to plan or predict for anything and everything. But all we can do now is I can find some kind of balance between those two thoughts, those two polarities today between 80 years from now, 30, 40, I'm going to live till I'm 130, but till say healthily till I'm 85, 90, and think, okay, cool. Then I can know what I can do, spend money, enjoy myself, do things, and not just about money. I'm just speaking about this subject today, but just living life, enjoying myself. And, those two friends I mentioned, both had no idea, and it was sudden for both of them, very sudden. And we've lost a lot of people. Obviously my sister was like you, actually. She was, when she worked in IT, but then she ended up selling on eBay full time as well. So she passed in 2008 before Amazon was a big thing, but eBay was around massively then. And she was making a really good living out of it as well. So I've lost, we've lost a lot of people just generally in our lives. So it's something that's always at the forefront of my mind, not in a morbid way, not in a negative way, but I just actually think of it from a positive way. So if I can have an impact now, live my life to as much as I hope, as fully as I possibly can, and enjoy life, create memories, whilst also creating a bit of a legacy. If I can, we don't have kids, but if I can leave a nice little nest egg to my nieces and nephews, great, I'll do that. I'll happily do that as well.
I totally agree. I mean, it sounds morbid to keep death in the front of your mind all the time, but actually that's how you make the most of your time. Because if you live as though you're going to live forever, then you're going to waste so much time. Yeah,
even when I'm coaching people when it comes to dating, I always put this question very early on, because if someone comes to me and they're obsessing about someone who's caused them a bit of pain or something's happened, I'm like, first and foremost, how long did you know this person? 2 weeks, a month? And I'm like, are you really going to let that person steal any more of your joy, any more second? Like, if you knew right now that you were going to die, if you had that gift, in 24 hours or whatever, would you still be thinking about that person? Hell no. None of us would be. So why do you want to keep obsessing about that person? That is just your anxious attachment. It's just an illusion of your mind. Now we're going to let this go, and you're going to think about your future now. It's that kind of thing, right? Life is so fragile, and we want to be able to just, like I said, do the thing that we I was with a few of my guy friends recently, and I asked them the question. I said to them, what would be on your epitaph, what would people say in your eulogy? And these are just normal guys. Like, I think out of all those guys, I'm probably the one person who's probably lives life in the limelight more than they do. They're just great family men. But it was interesting to hear some of the things they had to say, and it was just bog standard stuff, but it was all the fundamental stuff. Be a good person, do good, try and leave a little bit of a legacy, and create good memories for the people around you that, maybe is remembered for the next sort of 50, 100 years. For the people, your kids, their kids, etc. They'll think about you, or maybe they'll share a lesson or two about you. So it's the most basic, simple stuff. But those are the stuff. That's the stuff that's priceless, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a good question though, to ask what you'd want in your epitaph or eulogy. Ironically, my mama asked me that a few days ago.
Oh, really?
And I had no answer.
I had no answer.
I'm still, as if you've just said that as well, I'm still thinking about what would I write? I have no idea.
I mean, I still think about it. It's a very difficult
question.
I do still think about it, because I don't know as well. I wouldn't say I know the answer entirely, but I have an idea of it. I think it is just, so I mentioned one of the guys who passed away was also one of the presenters on Sunrise, Bob, and I did manage to go to his funeral, but I didn't get inside because there's so many people there, so I only heard the speeches from the outside. I didn't even see the faces of the people who gave them, actually, but it was just beautiful to hear what they had to say, and they were quite raw and honest. They were like, he was by no means a perfect person, but one thing he was good at was really leaving his mark. Like
Yeah.
he really knew personal branding and marketing, like how to stand out and create characters and, you know, to get people to really remember him, create, you know, even just a tagline or a character or a phrase or something he would say on radio that would stick in people's minds that people
that's a real
could.
art.
Yeah.
It's a real art.
And, you know, this goes back to the original question. I know we're almost out of time actually, but we'll cycle around to this original question. And I think you're as good a person as any in this world to answer a few of these questions that I sort of mentioned at the beginning as well. And I think that, and it does cycle around to this actually, what we've just been talking about, your epitaph, your eulogy, and actually just even your elevator pitch. Because let's go back to the dating example, just because that's my niche, right? But I say to people, when you go on a date, try not to ask all the usual boring status quo questions. What do you do? Where are you from? Etc., etc. However, whereas I can train you to do it, doesn't mean other people aren't going to ask you. So you may as well be prepared for these 10, 15, 20 questions you know you are going to get asked, no matter what. But we are so poorly prepared to answer them, and we answer them in the most lackluster, thoughtless, low energy way possible. What do you do? Oh, I work in IT. And, you know, and I consider this is where I loved wanting to have you on board, because I think there's so much parity and synergy between what we do, which is presenting yourself. And, your brand got picked up, and it was a reason it got picked up, because obviously it spoke volumes to people, to someone who thought it was worth a lot of money. And if you could place a value on yourself, we just did that 10 million analogy, but, you know, you'd probably consider yourself worth a lot of money. And, you know, how do you now articulate that in words? How do you present yourself to the world in a way which is not so lackluster, but actually really talks and speaks volumes and creates a bit of pizzazz, a bit of energy, a bit of, you know, zest, so the other person feels energized by even hearing your answer, where they want to know more. They're curious. They want to, you know, elicit more information from you. So I think it's one of these things that I think that people are very poor at, dating scenario or otherwise. You know, even I find when I ask people, you know, to tell me about your business, they kind of give me a really sort of low energy answer. And I think to myself, wow, like, you know, if people ask me what I do, well, I'm a love doctor, I'm a radio presenter, I do some other really cool stuff. I invent products sometimes, I've made apps, of like, you know, I just go into this whole big spiel about a zillion things. And sometimes I zero in on just one, but sometimes I talk about the multitude of things I do, you know, being a podcaster, etc., etc. But that's what people are going to remember ultimately.
Yeah, 100%.
Not just from the mortality perspective, but even when we just leave the room, I want them to walk away thinking, do you know, I'm at another networking event, but you know, I was at last minute networking event. I mean, it's really a great guy called Amit, and he was a dating coach, and he did this and this and that. I just thought it was really cool. Like that's real. True power is being able to say something or do something that has an impact, that has stickiness, it stays in people's minds. And I don't know if you want to share any thoughts on that particular subject about how we present ourselves to the world. So like I said, whether in a dating scenario or otherwise, or any situation, you know, what's now doing what you do, how do you connect to people? What resonates with you when you ask people these questions? And how do you answer those questions?
That's a good question. I always say, frame it, no matter how boring or plain your answer would be, frame it through a format of interesting, positive, and funny, right? So for example, instead of saying, you know, I'm in IT, you would say, so, you know, I currently work in IT, which I absolutely love, because it means I can work from home every single day. So I get back loads of time to be able to do the things that I love. And the most hilarious thing about what I do is my boss looks like a British bulldog. Like, for example, something like that. You're going to remember that. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's random, but it doesn't matter.
And that's going to elicit more interest from the person who's listening to you, even if your job is dull as hell. And, you know, I think it's just about trying to make things a little bit more interesting and engaging for another person. And think, you know, positive emotions as well. So trying to insert something a little bit funny in there is always going to elicit a positive emotion, right? It's going to elicit a laugh, at least, hopefully. And, you know, saying what you like about things, it makes you come across as, again, a positive person rather than someone who complains, because no one likes people who complain a lot.
Yeah.
So, you know, little things like that, always, as I say, positive, funny, and what was the other one? Positive, funny,
and authentic as well. It doesn't have to be
authentic.
When people say, you know, I think that word is very almost very misunderstood, but all you're doing is just adding a bit of flavor to who you are.
Yeah.
And we're all of us are capable of doing that as well. So the analogy I give is when people come to me as a client and they want to know what I do and kind of maybe they want me to qualify myself to them. If I sat there and I went, yeah, I'm a coach and I can maybe help, like are you gonna hire me? Hell no. But if I say to you, listen, Neil, you got problems with your dating life, I'm one of the best fucking coaches you could ever hire. I know I'm good at my shit. But listen, I want to tell you something though, Neil. I want you to go speak to 3 or 4 other coaches as well. Don't just take my word for it. Go speak to them, have a conversation with, and most coaches will offer you a free, 15-minute or 30-minute consultation. And if you think I'm not the best person for the job, great. I honestly say to you, implore you, go pick the one that you think is the best. However, if after this conversation you think I'm the right person for you to be able to help you through your attachment issues, through your dating woes, being able to actually engage people and ultimately enjoy your dating journey to meet the one with that goal, then choose me. Who are you going to pick out of those 2 people? You're going to pick
you're
going to pick more likely to pick the second one, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how I pitch myself to people. Some people may say that's a terrible way to pitch yourself. I mean, fair enough. Okay, maybe there is a better way. Maybe I will find that better way. I don't know, but I find it a pretty good way, a pretty effective way right now. And to be honest, it's almost not a pitch. It's what I genuinely believe as well. Yeah. And that's what it is I can either sit there presenting myself in a one-dimensional way, or I can present myself in a multifaceted way. Both are in some ways authentic, but one is just a hell of a lot more fun than the other.
Yeah, totally. And the thing is, what you'll probably find is that method that works for you, probably if another coach were to try and emulate that exact method, probably wouldn't work for them. Yeah. Right? Because only what is authentic to you works for you.
Yeah.
This is the exact same thing as exactly as you say, advertising a product, right? You can't advertise, I don't know, a solar light in the exact same way that you advertise an iPhone charging cable, because they're 2 very different things.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that everything is tailored towards you and what you're specifically trying to say. And I know a lot of people might have said, if you asked me what I do for a living, I would have just said IT. I wouldn't have said, I work in IT and it means I can work from home and I love that and all of those sorts of things. However, you can definitely train yourself to do that. Yeah. You can. So people might be looking at me thinking, yeah, that just fell off the top of your mind and that was a great thing to say. But that sort of thing doesn't fall off the top of my mind. But it will. It will. If you do actually practice these things and try and make a concerted effort, you'll be very, very surprised at what you can do.
Yeah.
You can say a lot more and be a lot more interesting by just saying things in a different way.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. I feel like we could let this conversation continue, but I do unfortunately have to draw a line. However, I didn't do this tradition at the beginning. I normally do it at the beginning, but we'll do it at the end today. Why not?
Definitely.
What the hell? I created these cards. So these are something I want to start selling on Amazon as well. Essentially what these are normal playing cards. So you could just take them on holiday with you, but they also have a question on there. So the 2 jokers just have a wild card question, like you can ask me anything, but essentially though, all the cards have a random question. So you could take these on a date, for example, play these with your date, say pick a card and you both answer the questions and stuff, just to make it a bit more fun, a bit more interesting. Or you can I tell podcasters, use this at the beginning of your podcast with your guests or whatever. Anyway, so I have a little tradition on mine as well. So I will get you to pick a card very shortly. I will ask you a random question to finish off with. I used to be a professional magician in a past life. Right, just say stop wherever you want.
Stop.
Alrighty, let's see what we've got. What is your favorite way to stay active and have fun?
My favorite way to stay active and have fun has to be, personally, I find lifting weights and walking with my kid.
Nice.
Because my kid's getting heavier and heavier all the time, which means that it is a good workout to actually carry her and walk. You'll be very, very surprised. After a few minutes, you're just like, oh my God. So that was one of my favorite ways, and she loves seeing everything that's around her. So, that's a really nice way of staying active and fit.
Nice.
Going to the gym, I find for me specifically, and lifting weights, it's kind of like, it's something that's reliable and something that you can expect the same thing every time. So there's no thought on the different things that can happen, right? There's no decision fatigue or no new responses you have to make for variations of things that happen, right? You're gonna pick up that bar and you're gonna do that 20 times, and then you're gonna put it down and have a sip of water and then do the same thing again, right? I mean, I guess the same thing happens on a treadmill or however you stay active, but I think one thing that makes staying active a lot more, easier to do is when you don't have to think about it. When you have to think about stuff, it becomes more taxing. it requires more energy. So when you don't have to think about exercising because you've just got a routine that you can go through mindlessly, it makes it a lot more enjoyable because it seems easier.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. How long have you and your partner been together, by the way?
We have been together for a total of 15 years.
Wow.
15
cool.
years.
And married for how long?
Married for 4 years.
Nice, beautiful. Well, congratulations to you and on your. Do you say it was baby girl, by the way?
Yeah, baby girl.
Baby girl as well. Congratulations to you on your baby girl. 7 months old, you said, right?
Yeah.
Nice. So a future entrepreneur in the making. I reckon she's going to be a next level, next generation entrepreneur. So Definitely. She's in the Are you Gujarati, by the way?
I'm Gujarati. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, as I call it, generation beta. We're in the generation beta stage, aren't we? So yeah. So
100%.
She'll be she'll be a next generation entrepreneur. Obviously, I'm sure you're going to rub off on her a lot. So she's going to pick up a lot from her dad and hopefully be the next generation that goes and teaches people.
That's it. I'm trying to raise a Spartan. So
yeah.
I try and be nice to her, but not too nice.
Yeah.
Not too nice.
Instill a little bit of that warrior mindset.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Neil, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And like I said, right, your story almost took me off guard a little bit, and I almost wanted to go in about 300 different directions and follow-up questions. But I'm just glad I got to know you, and I'm definitely 100% sure we're going to stay connected as well.
Honestly, I feel like we barely even scratched the surface.
I know. Same.
There's so many avenues we could go further down into.
100%.
Like turning yourself into a marketable product.
Yeah.
For the dating market, it's something that we didn't even scratch the surface of.
I know.
It's something that's
I know, and that was the original intention. But then when you started talking about the other stuff,
the difference between men and women, and the different directions that our instincts draw us into.
Yeah.
And the different things that we're attracted to, I think is also again a really, really interesting topic that we wouldn't have even had time to scratch the surface of.
No, I know.
Now next time we need to book in for a good 6 to 8 hour podcast, and then we'll
have lunch. We'll bring a whole tally with us and rotli and everything as well, and munch and do our podcast. But no, honestly, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you and stuff, and definitely, no doubt, there'll be a part 2 at some point in the near future.
100%. Yeah, we need to go into some more specific things, for sure. But thank you so much for having me today, Amit. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, it's been a pleasure having you on, ladies and gentlemen. That's the Feel Inspired podcast with my guest Neil. By the way, I forgot to ask the one last most important question: where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at neilen.inc. So that's neilen.inc. Or you can find me on Facebook, Neilen Mayani. And that's the easiest place to find me. Actually, everyone's on Instagram, right? Yeah. So at neilen.inc.
Perfect. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you on the next episode.